Good evening. My name is Keith Strait. I'm with Red Con Engineer, and I'm representing the Sadies. Just to give you guys a little history for the new quorum that's up here. The Sadies have a property located on Doe Lane off of Pumpkin Center Road. They have a malfunctioning on-watt system, and they
I'm more familiar because I was here when it started, but I
Just gonna wait a second.
That's fine. I don't quite know all the history between the township and everything like that with the homeowners. But
Go ahead.
But I did get involved when the Washington County Sewage Council cited them for the malfunction on watt system and asked that they do a repair to the system or, look at other sewage alternatives. And one of the alternatives, I believe, TJ, when he was first brought on, went out there and met with them and looked at their site, their house, looked at the road right away, looked where existing public sanitary sewage exists, and said, hey, I think this is a viable solution. However, you're gonna have to reach out to a consultant engineer and get them involved. So at that point, that's when I got involved, and we came up with a design. We submitted it, we submitted for sewage planning approval, got West Elizabeth signed off, Union Township also signed off. We're waiting on Jefferson Township for capacity approval. Then I submitted the design to TJ around the end of November, and then he submitted back to my office on December 13th a preliminary review. So tonight there's some township items that need to be discussed, and how we can proceed and move forward. My purpose of being here is to bring those items attention to the township and see how they want to handle it, so we're not going back and forth and re-engineering all kinds of things.
I have one question. The Jefferson is because we have lines that come through there.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's getting done by Clarendon and through Weeza, but we have a section of that pipe or whatever that goes through, a section of the pipe that it goes through is owned by Jefferson.
Yes, that's correct. And I wasn't aware of that till we went to West Elizabeth and asked for capacity approval, which they indicated in their letter that, hey, there's a portion that flows through Jefferson Township, so as a downstream community, they would need to sign off on the plan or capacity.
I don't blame you. I wasn't aware of it either until 2023. In the beginning, they told us we hadn't paid them for years and they demanded money, so
Yeah,
I didn't know we had a portion that went through there until then either.
Yeah, well, and that's what happens with changeover of staff, some of those things get lost. But so we're working with Jefferson Township to get that handled. But just a couple of the comments that were, I don't know if you want to get in those, TJ, or just kind of talk about them high level. But
Yeah, I guess the high level, and Keith's right. We took a review of the drawings that were submitted, a copy of which is on the board table there. And like Keith mentioned, the Seggies are interested in installing a grinder pump and a force main. I believe Doe is a private street, right?
Yes.
So from a property standpoint, I believe the easement description states that they have the right to access and install utilities within that easement.
So based on our deed research, this subdivision was done many years ago, and it's got a note on the recorded plan that says this is a private drive.
Mhm.
If the township ever was to take it over, it would have to be brought up to township standards. However, there's a 50-foot right of way that's dedicated for that road, and there are existing utilities within that road right of way.
What do you mean, there are existing utilities?
There's gas, there's overhead power, electric that
Telecom.
run right back.
So they're already located in there.
Yes, that's correct.
Water is in that.
So, but the law says utilities plan a lot. Whoever owns the plan lot has a right to use that paper street, right?
That's right.
And it's really a private issue from my perspective about using that road for that utility. You may have, and I don't know who these people are, but they could cause you a problem. So maybe the best thing to do is get some type of understand your agreement, signed agreement saying that you have no objection to it. Is that gonna be a problem?
It could be, yeah, I mean, the intent was to have this grinder pump line turned over to the township. I mean, the Segis, we would like to make this a public line that the township would own. I mean, they don't wanna get into being,
So then
In
we
the
need,
sewage
we
business.
would need an easement then.
And so that's the other part of this conversation is the Saggies are at the end of Doe Lane. I forget how far the stationing is. It's at least a couple hundred feet, and it does cross additional lots with frontage on the proposed sewer. So one of our comments in our review was, I think it needs to be a conversation that the township has and some input from the township as to those folks and their ability to connect to this sewer line. That, in my opinion, they should be afforded that opportunity if it's going to cross in front of their property. So, that then becomes a question of multiple residences using the same, what I would consider a sewer lateral, and the way around that would be to have the township take over the pressure sewer component. Typically, the residents would maintain ownership of the grinder pump itself, but like Dennis mentioned, you'd have, an easement situation there and potentially the township taking over a pressure sewer in their El Rema collection system, which to my knowledge, there's no precedent for that yet. I don't believe there are any grinder pumps at all in the El Rema collection system at this point. So,
Would every one of these people then, if they tapped in, would have grinder pumps as well, right?
they would, yes. Yeah. And I think a number of those principal structures are within 150 feet, which is the township's ordinance for the requirement to tap in. So it's my understanding that the Saggies have prepared their preliminary design, and they're looking for some input from the township, our office and the board, and Dennis's office in terms of the public versus private ownership of the pressure sewer itself.
So if it did become public ownership, then our ordinance would state that almost those people would have to.
Anyone within 150 feet without intervening property would have to hook up.
That's what I'm saying, so if that did, then we'd be talking to those people who, no doubt some of them would like to hook up.
yeah,
And your certified operator would be responsible for operating not only the gravity collection system that exists today, but that would be an extension of a pressure sewer extension.
Well, let me ask you this question. They're gonna be paying for all this. Who's gonna be paying for the line itself?
currently the Saggies. And if they're,
What's the project cost right now?
I would say 30 to 35,000.
Hard and soft both?
50,000 all in.
So what
So
I'm saying is if we decide to go and update it or whatever, these people would have to pay a tap fee. Maybe the tap fee could be used, reach an agreement between the Saggies and John Doe and Susie Q, whoever's there.
I agree, additional folks tying on to that sewer would afford them the opportunity as,
Recoup
the
some of
Saggies
their
would essentially be serving as a private developer.
Saggy debt service.
There's a portion of the act that provides
There
that.
would be,
That's correct.
there would be, a tap-in fee that they would be entitled to collect, presumably.
Correct.
I personally wanna know how the four property owners would feel, like, are they all for it, or are we gonna be facing opposition that will be, cause if we do make it public, our ordinance says they must tap in. I don't wanna put a hardship on one to alleviate a hardship for another, I don't know what to do with that.
The next question I have is if it's 1.5 inches pressure line, is that enough to service those people?
Well, that's what I would need to evaluate. Probably go to a 2-inch line, but that's, right now, I'd run it for, the Saggies own 2 lots. One, they have a house, and then the other one is a vacant lot that we're obtaining sewage planning approval for that vacant lot, not intending to put a grinder pump in, but should they ever want to sell it off, that they could have sewage and planning's already approved.
What's the acreage on the lot with the house on it? As you get older, it's hard to see that stuff.
Yeah, do you know how many acres you
How
guys
many
have
acres is
there?
it?
Well,
TJ?
I think
I'm not
we
sure.
have over 3 where the house is. It
Yeah.
goes beyond to the left.
Is there water there also, by the way?
Yes. There's water, sewer, and gas. Or not sewer, I'm sorry, electric.
So
Water,
there's a way to evaluate the storage usage based on a water bill.
So if you're gonna make it a public, you're gonna have to increase the size of the pipe.
Yeah, possibly, but it's under, I mean, grinder pump designs,
Well,
unique in itself, and
does this lot go, do these lots extend over this way, or is it this end right there?
well, there's, this public right of way extends all the way to the end of this property.
So there's
which
no
is-
extension beyond, I guess it's Robert Fink's property?
Yes, that's correct, and there's no planned extension or anything like that, I mean, it's just grass right now, I mean, there's a gravel road that goes back to it, but one of the important parts of this is the Washington County Sewage Council has cited them for
Mhm.
malfunction on the
Correct.
system, so.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, I mean, this is a solution to the inevitable problem that exists,
So issue one is talking to the property owners. Issue two is the capacity of that pipe. Issue three would be basically, getting an easement. And I'd take the easement all the way back to the Fink property, maybe it's what I would do.
Right now, he also said he was waiting for capacity from Jefferson Hills on one house, we'd have to reevaluate
That's
Jefferson
correct.
Hills on all of them.
You're right.
But the reason I say the Fink house, because Mr. Fink may have, I don't know what the acres he has there. And if we do that agreement, basically that we hook so many people up, they get reimbursed for the tap fee, the cost they put into it.
Yeah, where's the 50-foot right of way play into it? I mean, I guess what's the easement
I'm
requirement?
talking about an easement for a sewer line.
The problem, at least that I see, is that that's a private street, and if that force main gets turned over to the township, we would need some type of easement centered on that force main so that we can,
Maintain
The mere
it.
fact that it's a private road, it's owned by, what I've been taught over the years is it should be an easement. If we're gonna take it over, we wanna have an easement saying the township has the right to use it, to go on, maintain the line.
Okay.
A similar thing happened with Pittsburgh Powder Coat, even though he owned both lots, he was going through one. And he wanted to dedicate that to the township, but we needed an easement agreement on that other, cause if he ever sells it, he's coming
Right.
through one to the other. So we have to be able to maintain that line.
So if they had an access maintenance agreement that indicated ingress, egress, and regress, then utilities would be acceptable in that private right of way.
I would have to think, but I would want something saying John Doe or Susie Q, that basically, we have to see what you're talking about before I can go further, but I'd rather have something definitive saying we have the right to go on there.
Okay.
I dealt with, again, Southwestern Pennsylvania Water Authority, one time in Cumberland Township, there was a private road. We said we need an easement, just can't let you go up the road.
Right.
Yeah, once it comes into being a public line, then it has to be read to PA1 call, I mean, we have to be able to get in there to repair it if anything would happen.
And the other
For the
utilities,
rest
I
of
mean, they probably have,
They probably do.
easements in place through that?
Well, it'd be PUC regulated. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you call PA1 call,
No, it
and
would
they've
be
got a sewer
PUC.
line, it's gonna be a way to market.
A lot of times people just did as they wanted to do.
Yeah, and on the one side of it, it's a gas line, so we're proposing on the other side of the road, to run that sewer line, and, they did go out and mark all the utilities when we surveyed that, so. So how do we initiate the discussion with the other property owners? Is that-
should the township prepare a letter to these, I have the parcel IDs listed, notifying them of the potential for a,
You have the Beam, Judith Beam, I believe, and us, and some other people, Trimmel.
Yeah, Trimmel,
Judith Bain was on the other side, right
Yeah.
across from Trimnell.
Right, you have Beam across the road, you have
Trimmel, on two
Trimmel.
properties,
two properties, that's all you have, right?
yes, that'd be correct.
yeah,
And
I
then
have
we would be
5
within the-
tax map parcels. Potentially.
Is this, we're talking about contiguous with this private road. Alright, so I just think someone contact them, I mean, if you wanna have it come to the township or somebody, the engineer.
How is Mrs. Seggy with her neighbors? She talked
Mrs.
to her.
Seggy, the Trimmel and the Beams,
Could we facilitate through you to have a conversation with your neighbor?
I think you guys should, really. The situation with the Bean, she's in a nursing home. She was the owner of that place.
okay?
And now her grandson is living there. And I think that was a little bit
So you don't know if he has power of attorney? or
I have
anything
no
like that,
idea.
do
We have never met
You
them.
have
You
a
just
name?
hit one stumbling block after another,
It's
Mr.
true.
Segi. That's
It
for
is
sure.
How about the Trimmels?
The Trimnells, I'm sure they would want to hook in.
Do you have a name living on the kid living on the Bean property?
No, I do not. I'm sorry. I mean, I can get that information certainly, but I don't know
Do you know
them.
these people?
This is very, very, just of lately that they moved in there before the holidays, the grandson and the,
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we have the township, or somebody send a letter to these two property owners, Tribbles and Bean, and say, are you
Okay.
interested in, we're talking about having sewer going up there, are you interested in having public sewage, and see what they have to say.
and is that going to be in conversation in the letter about, how they're going to pay for this, or what their responsibility
Well,
is for the hookup and all that, or?
Oh,
they're
that's
just-
another thing, do you want them to pick up part of the cost, or do you want to do the
Oh,
town?
that'd be great, but I
Yeah.
don't
They're
know.
not gonna agree to that.
Yeah, the only thing that I think that, under the Municipal Authorities Act, they're entitled to some type of reimbursement of the
Provide
tax
for
fee.
that.
Would be very
So,
nice.
That would
We're
be
putting
something
out.
we'd have to have an agreement in place I mean, right now, I think upsizing the line is a negligible cost to go from a 1.5 inch to 2 inch. To service their property, it's, apparent that they would be putting in this line. And, the adjoiner property owners would, benefit from this, but they would get some reimbursement in the tap fee.
Okay? Anything else?
No, just wanna keep the project moving forward and try to get some decisions made, so, yeah, if the township would reach out and, maybe start that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can prepare a letter, if you'd like, and send it to the township to have Diana send out on letterhead. To each of the
And that letter
potential
should,
property
the letter should explain basically public sewage, basically there would need to be an easement, there'll be there's to be a tap fee of X amount of dollars and so forth.
And we should probably give them a certain time period, a few weeks to respond, but, I mean, the Segis have been dealing with this situation for a long time. We probably don't want this to hold up their being able to pursue their own project. But, given the fact that we're going past people's properties, I think it's important that we evaluate their opportunity to tie into this as well.
How about the pink guy that lives at the very end of that road? Does he have a lot of property, do you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know the lay of the land, if it's developable, or, I haven't investigated any of that. But even if we go with a 2-inch line and grinder pumps, I'm doing a development right now that's got about 25 homes tied into a 2-inch line, and it becomes more your static that you worry about, and how they simultaneously operate together. So I'm not real concerned that a 2-inch line is not gonna be, any issue for future development. So, but they would, conceivably have to, if the Fink property wanted to tie into this line, they would have to get a easement from Bean or the Segis themselves to tie into that.
Is that our drawing, is that, we'll take it back?
That's the same drawing that you
Same
have.
drawing, I just didn't know if I need to present it, so. So, with that, if you have anything to say?
This time, but that would be great if we would get some reimbursement. This is a big chunk of change that we're responsible for now. We're the third owner of this property, and it all fell apart on us.
Your engineer understands the concept of being reimbursed, correct?
Yep. Totally understand.
So we'll prepare the letter, send